Well, thank you all very much for having me here today. My name is Dave Williams. I'm a retired middle school science teacher. I taught for 37 years, and then for the last 10 years I've been a volunteer and part-time employee at Massachusetts Audubon at Joppa Flats. Presently, I lead bird walks for them on Fridays and Saturdays. So what I'd like to do today is to share with you some of the very interesting hawks and owls that we're going to see around here. Raptors are birds that eat things. They catch and kill things to eat. So, the upper left is the bald eagle. The upper right, anyone know what that is? No. That's an eastern screech owl, a little tiny one. And there's the iconic snowy owl there. Now, everybody is familiar with the red-tailed hawk, I'm sure. You've seen him perched. They're one of our best rodent control going. But I bet also you have heard him. Sounds seem to be.
Okay. Oh, we just heard that one too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you put the volume up on the thing?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
And on the laptop it's up?
Yeah. It is up quite high.
Okay, now it's muted. Watch. Do that again. Do what you just did. What you just did on. Okay, now look. Okay. Okay, see? That voice is shut off. Is it shut off on your computer?
How's that?
All right, try it now. Let's see. Okay, because I saw the thing and it had a line through it. Try to turn it up a little bit. Okay. We hit the go button. Hit the go button. That go button. Oh, okay.
I don't know what the function is.
Okay, look. On his computer, hello, Barbara, come on in. Okay.
Looks like it's on. So.
Okay, hold on. We just heard that before, so we know it's here.
It's pretty loud.
Yeah.
We did test this and it did work.
Okay. Did you see that arrow? There.
6. And it's down up to 3. Now it's 8.
Did you go on that one? Yeah, try that again.
I'm not sure where that volume is.
Well, we'll just have to continue on without.
Sound.
Yeah. Oh well. But anyway, this red-tailed hawk nests here in Newbury, West Newbury, Byfield, Newburyport, throughout northeastern Massachusetts and throughout New England. It's a very, very common bird, and it usually nests in white pines, and it's a voracious eater of rodents, from rabbits to squirrels to chipmunks to mice and voles, and sometimes it'll even go after a big bird, like a gracker. And there's a picture of him on a squirrel that I took. Now, another hawk that's pretty common, but you might not have seen it because it's so secretive, is the broad-winged hawk. This hawk migrated by the thousands 2 weeks ago. In the middle of September, they travel down throughout southeastern United States, and then they turn west, go through Texas, and travel through Mexico on their way to northern South America, Colombia, Venezuela, and the like. These are just spectacular migrations. And then they return in late April, and they nest in deciduous forests. Now, here's a bird that you're only going to see if you're near a field, like the big salt marsh fields on Parker River National Wildlife Refuge, or maybe a big farm field like along Scotland Road. This is called the Northern Harrier. Some of you may have known it as a marsh hawk. Look at its face. Doesn't it have like an owl-like appearance? That's one of the ways it can help you to identify it. And it soars low and very slow. It can hover and then it drops down on its prey. And it's almost exclusively a small rodent eater. Look at where the tail connects to the body. See that big white patch? That's very diagnostic. And then, let me back up. This is a female. Notice the orangey brown tones. And this is the male. Very gray. Some birders refer to it as the gray ghost.
How big is that, approximately?
As far as length goes, it's probably about 18 to 20 inches. Its wingspan would be a little more than 3 feet. Now, this bird is called a sharp-shinned hawk, and you are most likely to see this bird around here in the winter in your backyard. This is the hawk that comes in and tries to catch your feeder birds. This bird eats almost exclusively other birds. It's got that very long tail that it can use like a rudder. It's a fast flyer, so it can go around trees, up and over hedges and bushes. There it is in flight. It has a cousin. Both of these hawks are in a scientific family called Accipiter. This Cooper's hawk is a little bit bigger than the sharp-shinned. Otherwise, they're very difficult to tell. This bird, again, eats other birds. They're very stealthy. I watched them fly across the street, across my side lawn, no more than a foot off the ground. It came to a neighbor's fence and went like this, went up and over the fence and surprised the birds on the other side of the fence and caught one and flew off with it. These Cooper's hawks do nest here in the greater Newbury area. And there he is in flight. Now, switch gears a little bit. This is the Peregrine Falcon. Have you heard about the pair that nests under the Route 1 bridge over the Merrimack River? The Massachusetts Wildlife Department put a wooden nesting box there, and this is the 3rd year in a row they've nested there. The Peregrine Falcon was almost expatriated from the United States because of the indiscriminate use of DDT in the 50s and 60s. And once that pesticide was banned, peregrine falcons, bald eagles, osprey all returned in great numbers. The DDT got into the water cycle, which got into small plankton-like things. Those in turn were eaten by small fish, which were in turn eaten by bigger fish, which were then eaten by these hawks and eagles and osprey. Every time that pesticide went up the food chain, it magnified, or bioaccumulation. When the bird went to lay its eggs, it thinned out the calcium so much that the egg either broke upon laying or didn't have enough calcium to make a shell, or when the bird sat on it to incubate it, it broke. And that went on for over 20 years, and the populations of those birds plummeted. But they've returned quite nicely with the help of man. This is a young juvenile Peregrine Falcon. These are the world's fastest flyers. Look at the wings, how they look almost pointed. That can help you to differentiate between a hawk and a falcon. A hawk's wings are going to be rounded. The falcon's wings will be pointed. And here are 4 young peregrine falcons. This is taken on a cliff in Reuben. Look at the right-hand bird. Do you see that green band on its leg? Pretty cool. Here is another falcon. This is a very small one called a Merlin. This small falcon breeds north of here. There may be a few paired nesting in western Massachusetts. Very, very fast flyer, very aggressive, and it chases small birds up to the size of sandpipers, trying to catch them for a snack. Again, look at the wings, how they're kind of pointed. And this is our 3rd falcon. This is the American Kestel. This is a male. Notice how the bright markings around the face. They catch big insects, small rodents. Their numbers have dropped dramatically here in Massachusetts due to a lack of habitat. They like big fields, pesticide use. So these birds I don't see too often. I see them a lot in April when they migrate through here. And again, here's the Kestel in flight, and notice the pointed wings, which are diagnostic of the falcons. Now here is the bald eagle. Bald eagle is one of the most statuesque birds in our country. Just a stunning bird. And as I mentioned, similarly to the peregrine falcon and the osprey, their numbers dropped dramatically in the 50s, 60s, and 70s due to DDT. Once it was banned in the early 1980s, Massachusetts Wildlife, in conjunction with wildlife agencies in Canada, would bring some Canadian eagle chicks to Quabbin Reservoir, and they put them up in these big wooden towers overlooking the reservoir. They were called hacking towers. And the idea was that the young bird would grow up and imprint on the Quabbin area, so that when it returned 4 or 5 or 6 years later, it would return to that area to breed. See the bird here with the white head and the white tail? It takes 5 years for the bald eagle to reach sexual maturity. And they tend to return to the general area where they were born. So Massachusetts did this bald eagle reintroduction program for about 5 years, and it was very successful. And eventually the eagles populated themselves enough that this program isn't necessary, and now there are probably well over 100 pairs nesting in Massachusetts. We've got 4 or 5 right along the Merrimack River, stretching from Salisbury up to St. Tingsboro. There was a pair that attempted to nest in the Parker River last year, so it's a remarkable comeback story. In all raptors, the female is the bigger one. It's anywhere from 10 to 15% larger in size than the male. And you can see here, the bird on the right is the female, and the bird on the left is the male. This is an immature young bird sitting on the ice. This was taken on the Merrimack River up in Lawrence. And this is, again, a juvenile bald eagle. Some people, when they see it, say, where's the white head and the white tail? Well, they don't get those until they're about 5 years old. And there's the adult. Just a striking bird. Bald eagles build nests up in trees, often pine trees. This was a nest taken over, a picture in Linfield. And these eagles will mate for life. They'll reuse that same nest year after year after year. They'll add to it. It gets bigger and bigger. If one of the birds dies, the other will look for another mate fairly quickly. Now, here's a turkey vulture. Now, this is not a raptor. This is a scavenger. It's going to eat dead things. And, but I put it in here because a lot of people think it's a raptor because it looks like one. It looks like a great big huge hawk. It's almost the size of a bald eagle. Maybe you've seen them. They've got this big dihedral, like V shape, and they're just drifting over the road in the wind. They use a sense of smell and sight to locate their prey, or to locate something dead. Often you'll see them on the side of Route 95 or out in a field feeding on something dead. Now, here is a bird that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Let's see if the sound's going to work now.
I think you just did.
I'm not hearing it.
Cheap trick was this on it?
I don't know what's going on. But this bird exclusively eats fish. It will, you'll see them over ponds, over the Merrimack River, over the ocean, and they'll go after herring, mackerel, pogies, small striped bass, flounder. In freshwater ponds, they'll take bass and trout and pickerel. Now, most of the osprey are just about gone. I saw one this morning. I'd say 95% of them have left here, and they're going to migrate to Central America and Northern South America. Some will also winter in the Florida Gulf Coast area. So they're a long-distance migrant. There we go. There's the sound. Have you ever heard that before? Good. Is that too loud for you?
No.
Again, this is a great shot. That's a Manhattan or pogie. When they catch the fish, they'll hover, they'll dive into the water, they'll hit the water talons first. They'll grab a fish, fly up, kind of shake like a dog to get the water off, and begin to fly away. And as they do, they reposition the fish. So the head of the fish is facing forward. And they do that so they're more aerodynamic when they fly. Now, here's a little bird that is fairly common, but because it's nocturnal, we rarely see it. This is the eastern screech owl. It's a very small bird, about that big. And believe it or not, they can appear as this reddish color, or they can appear gray. There's two different phases, so to say. They nest in holes in trees. And again, here's a gray phase. You saw this picture in the opening slide. Look at that. The camouflage is quite something, huh? These birds eat small rodents, maybe insects or earthworm, but they are nocturnal, so they're hunting at night, so we don't often see them. I took this in downtown Newburyport. I forget the name of the street a few years ago. He was just looking down at me, sitting in the sun, relaxing.
Do you just know where, so how did you do that?
This is what a screech owl sounds like.
Almost sounds like a horse.
Yeah. So it doesn't have that whoop, whoop that most people think owls have. How do I find these owls? One, from other bird watchers, and two, you just have to be very patient and look at different holes. This is a barred owl. This bird, again, is fairly common. You'll see them, again, throughout this local area. But again, since they're nocturnal, you may hear them.
How did they make a sound? Are they calling to each other? Or?
Well, hang on, I'm going to show you. So that, it kind of, bird watchers say it sounds like, who cooks for you, who cooks for you all? And it can be spooky because, as this gentleman mentioned, sometimes you'll hear this. That's two barred owls calling back and forth. That caterwauling is almost spooky sounding. So if you live near deep woods, you might hear this at night. They're not a common backyard bird, but a bird more of the heavier forests. And here's a barred owl in flight. Big, look at that great big face. See, it's like a disc, and they use that disc almost like a radar dish to capture sound. And then using their sight and sound, you'll see them moving their head like this to try to triangulate where the creature is. And these birds eat lots and lots of rodents. Now here is the great horned owl. Again, a pair is nested over at Maudsley State Park for a number of years. Again, if you have a lot of open land near you, farms and fields and wood lots, you may have a pair of these. Again, being nocturnal, you're probably going to hear them before you see them. There were two duetting back and forth. The male has the deeper whoop, the female has a little higher one. I heard this last year out my bedroom window on a January night. These guys are what we call an apex predator, meaning if somebody says, what will they eat? Whatever they want, whatever they can catch. They'll take a rabbit, they'll take a skunk, they'll take a possum, they'll take a neighbor's cat. They're going to go after squirrels, chipmunks, rabbits, other things that aren't cautious at night. If you see one, often it's sitting in the tree and it just blends in, camouflages so nicely. This shot I took down in Florida. Here are two young babies, all fuzzy. I took this over in Rowley, I think. Now, another neat little owl that we rarely get to see is this softwood owl. It's this big. And right now is the time they are migrating from Canada and northern New England and heading south to the southern Appalachians in southeastern United States. This is what their song sounds like. Does that sound like a truck backing up? I had a person call me up a few years ago and said, Dave, I heard this bird, it sounded like a truck backing up last night. What do you think it was? And I played the Screech Owl, the saw-whet owl, sure enough. But yeah. Now, here's a bird that you're really only going to see in the winter. This bird nests way north, up in Alaska, the Canadian Northwoods, and we'll see several of them in the winter over on Plum Island, or maybe hunting over some of the farm fields. It's called a rough-legged hawk. Here's a picture of one sitting or perched. Another winter visitor is the short-eared owl. Every year we get to see a few, you know, maybe from that December through March time frame. It's, you know, medium size. Now what's interesting about the short-eared owl is that it's more diurnal. You will see it during the day, though it's most active right at dusk and dawn. And they are found in the open marshes, grasslands, you know, tundra, and you'll often see them with those marsh hawks or Northern Harriers. They inhabit the same niche. And here's a picture of the short-eared owl in flight. Just a neat bird. Now, I'm going to begin to close with an iconic bird here in the Newburyport, Newbury, Plum Island area, the snowy owl. Have any of you ever got to see one of these great big white owls? These are very special birds. They nest way up north, above the Arctic Circle, and circumpolar, so you could find them anywhere above that Arctic Circle, you know, Russia, United States, Canada. I've seen them in Alaska. And they, during the breeding season, primarily eat lemmings, which are a good-sized rodent. When the lemming population is robust, the snowy owls are very successful in raising young. They might successfully have 6, 8, 10 young. Now, when that happens, you get to September and October, and you get all these young owls in competition with one another, looking for food. What do? They head south. It's called an eruption. And sometimes when there's a good eruption, we'll get them here on Plum Island or Salisbury Beach for, you know, 3 or 4 months. Now, when they're down here, they eat whatever they want. They primarily go after other birds, such as ducks, but they'll take a goose. They'll take alces. These are birds like grebes and murres that go out over the ocean and hunt. They're just a remarkable bird. You'll often see them hunkered down on the top of dunes, whether there's snow or not. You'll see them up the top of light poles, trees. Look how white this bird is compared to this bird. This almost all white bird is probably an adult male. I say probably because it can be very difficult to determine the sex of the bird just by looking at it through the binoculars. So again, this was taken on Plum Island. Do you all know where that is?
Pink house.
That's the iconic pink house. And when snowy owls are around, very often you'll see one sitting on the roof or up on the chimney. There is a Mass Audubon scientist by the name of Norm Smith. He just retired 2 years ago. He's the snowy owl guy at Logan Airport. Because all airports have to have a person that oversees the birds and moves them out because of the danger of birds hitting planes. Those managers have the right to do whatever they want. They can shoot and kill these birds to get them out of there. Well, Norm Smith, 35 years ago, began trapping them and relocating them in the hope that they wouldn't return. After a few years, he started to mark them. He would color mark them. He put dye on their head, and I'll have a shot to show you. Well, fast forward to about 10 years ago, when technology got better, Norm Smith and a host of other owl researchers have formed an affiliation where they capture these birds and put solar-powered transmitters on their back. And that data is sent via cell phone, and it's downloaded, and the researchers have a much, much better idea of where these birds go and how they get there. We know that some of the birds that come down to Massachusetts return up to the tundra and are successful breeders, and then will come back down here. We know that one of their main routes when they leave Massachusetts is right over western Maine. Do you know what they want to build in western Maine? Great big wind farms, those big windmills. Windmills and birds don't get along well. So it's good to know this information so you can make informed decisions for everybody. I'm going to jump ahead. This is Norm Smith, and this is an owl that he caught at Logan Airport, and he brought up to Parker River to release. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time to see this. But look at that. Look at those eyes. Just a spectacular looking bird. Now, do you see the little green mark right at the top of its head? Again, this was taken maybe 15 years ago when they were still color marking these birds. So they don't do that anymore, but again, and I want to close with just this. When you're looking at raptors, there are a couple of things to look at. Look at the shape of their wings. If they're rounded, broad wings, broad rounded tail, it's in a family called buteos. That might be the red-tailed hawks. If they've got short, wide, round wings with a long tail, that would be the accipiters, the Cooper's hawk and the sharp-shinned hawk. And if they're the streamlined, long, pointed wings with a longish tail, those would be the falcons. So I want to thank you all very much for having me here today. I've enjoyed this, and I'd love to take any questions that you might have.
I've often seen birds, I assume they're hunting, and they're slowly and then little birds will come and peck them on the head.
Yeah.
And I was told that's to drive them down, because if they don't have the height, they kind of get.
Well, the general term for that is called mobbing, and the intent is to drive the bird out of that area. In other words, those small birds are probably nesting in that area, or that area is their territory, and they want to get that hawk or owl out of there. So they'll start screaming, and their friends will come, and together they'll drive the bird out. As to your comment, are they trying to force it down? I don't believe so. I mean, that could happen. I think their main intent is to get the bird out of the area.
My wife and I, a couple of years ago, were taking a trip on the Snake River in Wyoming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bald eagles there. And they were saying, I was surprised that they eat fish. And I didn't think they were fish eaters.
Oh no, bald eagles are primarily fish eaters. Now, in the winter when things get frozen up and snow covered, they'll go after ducks and geese and the like. But if there's open water, they're primarily fishermen. Yeah. Did you see any golden eagles out there?
I think we did probably saw one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
They were saying because the immature eagles can be good size, but they don't have the bald.
Right, they don't have
They
that white.
get confused.
Bald is from an old English word, B-A-L-D-E, meaning white,
Oh.
not meaning without hair.
It's a good trivia question, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it both male and female, and what, why it's?
Yes, remember, the difference is the size difference. Yep. The females will be 10 to 15% bigger. And that's true with most raptors. There's the slide of the two adult bald eagles. The one on the right being the female, the one on the left, you notice is smaller. You can see they're sitting on the same branch, so it's not a depth perception issue. This was taken at the Mystic Lakes in Winchester.
So they're quite prolific. I mean, you see them out in Wyoming, and then you see them here, and
Well, they are widespread. They'll breed from Florida up through northern Canada and throughout the west. So their territory is huge. But, you know, all of them, you know, it's taken since the 1970s when DDT was banned to now, what's that, over, you know,
50 years.
yeah, 50 years for the numbers to build back up. State of Maine, state of Florida always had a small population in the bad times. Massachusetts didn't have any. They were eradicated. Yeah.
But they're coming back from that.
They're coming back throughout New England very nicely. They're doing very well.
We had one in our backyard, and there's a number of people on it, and you thought that you saw the eagle,
Yeah.
and they were asking us questions, how old is it? Yeah, is it male or female? And they kept asking us these questions. I don't know.
Bald
I just know
eagles-
it's a bald eagle.
Bald eagles are also scavengers. You know, you can be very opportunistic. Anywhere where you have a big population of deer, sometimes you might find, you know, if a deer goes out onto the ice and falls and breaks its pelvis, you know, the coyotes will get it, but then the eagles will come in and feast on it. I've been ice fishing up in Maine, and you know, some fishermen will throw a fish away, and an eagle will come down and, you know, feast on it. Can be very opportunistic, especially in the winter when times are tough.
They don't migrate.
They do migrate. A lot of the birds that were born here in Massachusetts, I don't know, I don't have the specific information, but you know, a lot of the birds that we see here in the winter have come from further north and west. And some of the birds that breed here, a few may spend the winter here as well, but others might move further south and southwest. Yes?
So would, some people put out bird feeders in the winter. Would these kinds of birds go to a backyard feeder?
No.
Why?
But if you wanted to attract a bald eagle, you put a deer carcass that the
Oh, I was
DPW gave.
thinking of that. I was gonna do that tomorrow.
There are people, you know, out west or in rural areas that will do that. Just to, you know, some photographers will get together and do that, get a roadkill deer and set up their blind and take pictures of the different animals that come in to eat it. Yeah. So it's a different type of bird feeder.
Yeah.
It's not different. Yeah.
Right.
So you took that picture of the,
I did take that one.
I hate to ask, what kind of camera was that?
It's a, no, it's a modest Canon, like a power shot almost. It's a newer version of that. It's got a big zoom lens built into it, but it's not one of those big expensive SLR cameras.
Oh, okay.
Most of the photographs I take are just for record keeping for myself, to document the birds, but it can take some good pictures. I mean, that's not too bad. It's not going to win any contests.
I know, but if you weren't sure, you take a picture, then you go back to books and, you know.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, digital photography has been a major game changer in the field of bird watching. Anybody can be a bird watcher now. You take your camera, you go out, you take pictures of birds, you bring them in, you put them on your computer, you share them on social media, Facebook, and all kinds of neat discoveries have been made this way. In my 40+ years of birding, without a doubt, digital photography is the biggest game changer.
Thank you. So binoculars, or do you need spot? So when I saw snowy owl, a tall owl, all I did was drive down the road until I saw 8 million people with bazooka type, you know, cameras and spotting scopes. I said, oh, they must be looking at something, and sure enough.
Well, you just hit upon the advice I give people all the time when they say, how do I find the birds? You find the people looking at the birds.
Right.
So if you go to a popular place like Plum Island or Salisbury Beach State Park, the vast majority of birders are very, very willing to share their knowledge with you, let you look through their scope. I remember I brought one of my school groups up to Salisbury Beach. There was a snowy owl sitting in the dune. The photographers of these great big huge lenses, they lower them, let every kid come up and look through it. It's just like a scope. And you know, you'll find that the birders and the photographers, almost all of them, are very friendly and accommodating to beginning people. People want to see these, you know, special birds.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when I'm driving down Scotland Road, and I see that slew of people on the side,
Yep.
all with their big cameras out, and everybody's like staring at something, it's okay for me to get out and ask them what they're staring at?
Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes, like, I go down that road a lot, and I see them all, especially early in the morning,
Yep.
like a slew of them.
Yep.
So now I'm driving by, I'm like, what the heck? What is everybody looking at? I don't see it. But if I stop, then they would be okay, yeah.
Yep. I bet they would offer you to look through their spotting scope.
Well, I a lot of times keep a set of binoculars in my car.
Yeah.
But just like the small ones, you know, just so I
Yeah.
can see. But I often feel like I'm intruding if I want to say, excuse me, can you tell me what you're looking at?
No, no,
Okay, just want to make
not
sure.
at
All
all.
right,
I led a bird walk this morning on Plum Island, and
okay.
several people stopped and we shared the information with them. We let them look through our scopes.
So when you said you did a bird walk, what does that equal?
I led a walk for the Brookline Bird Club this morning. So we met at 7:30 at parking lot 1, and we birded till about 11:15.
Did you always see what you were looking for, or do you know if you're looking for
Well,
anything
that's,
particular?
one of the great joys and attractions of birding is that there are many, many different ways to do it. You can be very casual about it, just looking at the birds in your backyard. You can be aggressive, let's say, or and go and pursue the birds. On a walk like this, knowing the time of year and knowing what's migrating, I led us to various places on the refuge. A lot of little LBJs, little brown birds, little brown jobs, sparrows. We saw probably 5 or 6 different species of those. We saw different shorebirds today.
So do you do that for the Audubon Society or on your own?
I do them for both.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I know that you might have already said this, so when are you thinking is our best time that maybe we can see this?
I would start looking mid-November.
And where would I look? 'Cause I'd like to see one.
The refuge would be the best place.
Out the back window, like? You talking like that way, or?
Drive down Parker River National
Yeah.
Wildlife Refuge.
Okay.
Just get,
Look for,
I've never seen one in real life.
just drive down the road, it took like 3 shots for my wife and I, exactly what he said, there was 8 million people over there, and we just had binoculars, but then same thing, but let's look at the spotting scope, and he was a good, he or she, I think, don't know what it was sitting in a post, just like you said, way off the
Yeah.
moon, like a parking lot number 2, and
Okay.
the
I never would have seen them,
Salisbury Beach State Park.
without somebody else pick them up first.
Yes.
Drive to Plum Island and see a lot of cars in front of the pink house.
Yeah.
You know this,
They're there?
sitting on the roof. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Okay.
He showed one on the roof
Yeah.
of the pink house.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
I would love to see one in
Yes.
real life.
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
When you're driving on Bridge Road in Salisbury, let's say going toward Newburyport, on the left-hand side, there's all those white birds and lots of people out watching them. What are they? Do you know? Do you
what
ever
time of
see
year
them?
is this?
I don't know.
I think it might be a heron roosting
I
area,
think it's,
where there's great blue herons and snowy egrets
Yeah.
and great egrets spending the night. They all gather up, it's called a roost.
oh,
And they're different, that's a popular one, and then
okay.
across the street from Colby Farm,
Oh, yeah.
Scotland Road, that pond there,
Oh,
out the back, Perkins Park
yeah.
in
Newburyport?
Newburyport.
Really?
Yep,
Okay.
those are all good roosting spots.
Roosting. Okay.
That tends to mean resting. Yes,
Is it true that birds that were flying south and the hurricane came, that it flew some of them back?
well, birds have been around for thousands of years.
Right,
They've evolved to survive and
Yeah.
pass on their genes.
yeah,
Many of these birds can sense changes in atmospheric pressure, and as a result will curtail their migration for a period of time or alter their route. Now, yes, sometimes the birds will get caught up in a storm, and if they're a land bird and they hit the ocean, that's it, they're dead. But then there are some birds that again will take advantage once the storm is passed. And if say in late September, early October, we've got a strong front coming out of the northwest, those are good migration winds for birds. If they're heading south, southwest, they take advantage of those.
So you're saying that the wind wouldn't necessarily blow the birds back. The birds know enough to avoid the winds.
For the most part, they do. It will interfere with them to a degree, but remember, these storms are going like this. So depending what part of the storm, if it hits them here, it'll take them like this. If it hits them here, it could move them like that.
Okay. And also the birds would have some instinct.
Yep, they're gonna avoid it. They're gonna,
Yeah.
these East Coast storms,
Yeah.
instead of coming down through Newburyport and right along the Atlantic coast, maybe they're coming down the Connecticut River Valley or the Hudson River Valley.
Okay. I have one last question. Is it true that if you have an influx of Canada geese and you put a swan in nearby, that, like at the Mall in Newburyport, there's a lot of Canada geese, and some people are saying just put certain kind of dogs and or a swan in the water and they'll go away. Is it true?
Well, to a degree. There are a lot of Canada goose management companies now that primarily use dogs that will chase them off.
What kind
But
of
the sheepdogs know how
You know,
to, and they don't like that, and they
Now,
gather them together and they.
swans are much bigger than geese. They are very aggressive, and they will, if they're in the same area in the spring during breeding season, will chase them off. But as far as being a real detriment to them, the town next to me, Wakefield, has a beautiful common, and the selectmen got fed up with the geese pooping all over the place.
Yeah.
So they hired a guy to come in with his dogs and chase them off. And they've been doing that for years.
Good, good.
A lot of towns have expanded their hunting.
Right.
We have two populations of Canada geese. We've got a non-migratory population. They'll move around a lot, but they're not the geese that nest up north and then fly south. And that non-migratory population are remnants from when hunting rules were enacted in the 1930s that prohibited hunters from using live geese as decoys. So once those laws were enacted, they had to let go all those geese. And slowly they have repopulated. And again, when we got heavy snow here, those birds will move
Right.
10,
Well, they
20,
moved to
30 miles,
Florida.
200, 300 miles, but then they'll return.
So my son is in a golf club in Florida, and they terrorize the players in Florida. Terrorize them. I mean, one guy was driving, and the geese, how do you plural it?
Geese.
Geese.
One goose, two geese,
So one goose
5 goose.
came in, and he was, and the guy was driving the little cart, and he started pecking at him, and the guy got into a bad accident. Because and then of course he took a lot of ribbon. It was bad enough he had the accident, bad enough that the
Well,
goose
again, if a bird is being aggressive towards you,
yeah.
a little bell should go off on your brain saying, hey, I am in its space.
Yeah.
They probably have a mate or young very close by.
Yeah. Well, he didn't know what to do.
Right.
What ended up happening was all the other guys at the golf course had never let him live it down.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he's been tortured in many ways from that incident. But so they go in the cold climate and they go to the warm climate.
Yes.
So if they were staying here for the winter, if they did, where are they gonna be? Like, where are they nesting?
The male in Newburyport.
Well,
Like marshy type of thing are we talking about?
yes, wetlands.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but those wetlands could be in the back of an industrial park.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be, don't have to be a remote
Okay,
marsh. They are adaptable.
okay.
Water department land, conservation land, school department land. the water holes of a golf course, the marshlands that abut golf courses.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yes,
Is there only one type owl that goes to that pink house? And where do they come from? Where do they go?
well,
We see them every winter.
the snowy owl, as I mentioned earlier, will spend the winter, not every year, but some years, in this area.
In this area.
Yes. And it might set up shop on the refuge and spend 3 months there. Or it may stop there and then continue south to, say, Rhode Island. Or it may come here and then say, and go back up to Bar Harbor, Maine. They're superb flyers, they move around well until they can find a situation that will meet its needs to survive.
Now, what do they eat?
Anything. No, the snowy owls in the winter will primarily eat lots and lots of birds, ducks, seabirds, but they'll also take rodents if they can find them. But it's going to be more birds.
So, ducks, duck is big.
Yeah, take ducks.
Well, that's why you call them birds of prey. Interesting. Wow. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much for coming up today. It's been a pleasure.